Denver Riggleman is the candidate, the Republican candidate for Congress in the 5th District of Virginia. That's Charlottesville all the way down through the south side. It's a huge district, bigger than New Jersey, big landmass. It was represented by the retiring Tom Garrett. And Denver Riggleman is a Republican nominee. He's favored to win there. And his Democratic opponent, Leslie Colburn, started her campaign out accusing Denver of doing Bigfoot erotica. And that was kind of the end of her campaign right there. Although, Denver, the fake polls and the fake newsers at it again. The New York Times poll saying your race is tied. I've got you up big. What is the deal with, look, I know you want to get people to work and you want to motivate people, but your race is not tied in the 5th District. Why do they keep lying, Denver?
I don't know. I planted that article to get people excited. I planted that poll, John, based on my intelligence background. No, I don't know. That was a poll taken over a week. The percentages were even wrong. They had 101% people reported. I don't know if that's possible unless, it's Democrat voters. I don't know. All of our polls are, we're looking okay. We're working pretty hard. We're in the lead. So I'm not quite sure what that New York Times poll was or what their methodology was, but I do know that we're just going to work till the end, and November 6th is coming. It's right here, so we'll just see what happens.
Fake news, fake polls, same old stuff. We went through this in 2016. We're doing it again. I was just telling our audience that the Washington Post actually published a poll yesterday showing Jennifer Wexton in the 10th up by 13 points over Barbara Comstock. Now, look, Wexton might be ahead and she might win, but she's not ahead by 13. I mean, these are just garbage. They're fake garbage. Polls. It's fake polls to drive fake news, to get a fake narrative. That's all it is. The thing has become so stupid, it's insulting to my intelligence, and it should be to anybody else. Denver, thanks for being with us. I'm going to start with politics, then we'll get into policy. Tell us about your campaign, your first-time candidate. What have you seen? What are people saying?
Well, I guess, when you're actually canvassing the district and going everywhere like we're doing, what we're seeing is optimism. We're not seeing this negative, pessimistic thing that seems to be coming from, the progressive left. We see actually optimism. I think Virginia has 2.9% unemployment. I think the 5th, I looked at it not too long ago, we're at 3%, so we're almost tracking exactly with Virginia. But we do see the superheated economy has caused labor shortages throughout the 5th. We do have people that are still screaming about, the weaponization of regulations and compliance. Trump has a pretty large favorable factor in the 5th District. So you don't see this kind of boo-hooing or bizarre emotive arguments coming out of the people in the 5th, who work for a living and do amazing things. You do see this optimism growing, and they want to continue to see what happens in the future and how much better we can do. So, John, I guess maybe I'm an eternal optimist. I feel very good things for the 5th District, and we're running on a positive message and the successes that this administration has had, but also the successes of the 5th District in our growth in manufacturing, agriculture, business. Every single economic indicator is up. People are keeping more of their money. It just seems to be, it's a very positive message out there right now.
All right, that's good to hear. We're with Denver Riggleman running for Congress in the 5th District of Virginia. He is the Republican candidate. He's going up against the Democratic nominee, Leslie Colburn. She's an author and a writer, and that'll be determined in 11 days on November 6th. Win or lose, he'll be back on our show, but he's going to win. He's up, in my estimation, pretty handily. Denver, you're a former intel officer. You're also a whiskey maker, so you make whiskey, shot terrorists. Always thought that was a great combination. Let me ask you something. As a former intel officer, you look at these pipe bombs. I think 9 of them that went out. None of them detonated. Now there's a question if they could have been detonated or if they were real. We don't have the answer to that. FBI is looking at it. There's accusations on all sides. Some people saying it's a right-wing, crazy whack job trying to take out the president's enemies. Another person saying it's a left-wing, crazy whack job trying to influence the midterms. My theory is whoever it is mentally sick and ought to be put away. I don't care who it is. What do you think of this?
Well, not only was I intel, I don't know if you know this or not, I did counter IED work. We went after roadside bomb makers. I was up in Northern Virginia at a classified location, and we worked something called the Counter IED Operations Integration Cell. So when you see something like this, you got to look at where the parts come from, where the detonators were, what explosive material was, right, and the method of delivery. And there's certain things that you look at. And when I look at the method of delivery, I look what these look like. It seems to me it's an evil, sort of hideous prank. Sending these type of, these cylindrical looking things that, don't much look like pipe bombs to me. But when you do look at it and look what they were trying to do to invoke terror, I just think you have somebody who's unhinged. And then when you see, Larry the Cable Guy inscription on the side of it, John, if you're an investigator, you start scratching your head immediately. Like, are they trying to send a message? Were they trying to make it, what were they trying to say? But to me, it's just like somebody unstable, who actually, I think, thought they'd get a kick out of this. And for people to be prognosticators, say, oh, it's the left or it's the right, it's the far right, right before the election, that's obviously what they're going to do. It's ridiculous. And to say it's a far left provocateur or some kind of false flag operation, come on. Let's actually look at the investigation. And there's a great thing in intel, John. Here's the saying. You ready for this? It's, you can't really tell the future until it happens. So why don't we go through the investigation, stop the far left blogs or the far left news media from trying to be ridiculous and trying to blow this up or try to blame President Trump because he mentioned the name George Soros once. This is just, again, I've had my own issues with the press the last 5 months with made-up, fabricated stuff from left-leaning blogs planted by the Coburn campaign. When I see this, I automatically look at the far-left press, and I think at this point they're just, honestly, John, and you might agree with this, I think they're marginalized themselves almost out of existence. I don't think anybody listens to them anymore.
Well, I think if they lose this election in the midterms, they will have gone all in for Democratic power 2 times in a row, gone 0 for 2, and I think their place in influencing Americans is going to be even further diminished. I mean, they certainly doubled down. The legacy media has doubled down on the disaster they had in 2016, all the fake polls, everything they did, all the narratives, all of it was wrong. I was on Australian radio the other day, and public radio in Australia, and the guy asked me, what have the Democrats learned from 2016? And I said, nothing. They've learned nothing.
No, you're right. Absolutely right. And it might have been the same person I interviewed with, John. I had a
Yes, it was.
Australian.
Yep.
Yeah, it was it? Okay.
Michael
after
Bennett.
the debate, after the forum the other night between myself, Leslie, Jennifer Lewis, and me and Ben Klein, and had Jennifer Lewis and Leslie Coburn there, he asked some of these same questions, and I find it amazing that they're doing the exact same things. And also, I also find it amazing that lately issues have taken backseat on Coburn's campaign now. It's all personal. It's taking Halloween pictures from my Facebook now. She's doubled down. Now it's not Bigfoot. It's, they're trying to portray me as crazy based on, I guess, Halloween costumes. And you know me, John. I have a good time. So it's amazing that last week she pretty much apologizes for marginalizing veterans, says she's going to stick to issues. Then she puts out a commercial calling me an extremist and trying to make fabricated things up again. This is what the left does. They're unhinged. It's desperate ploys by desperate candidates, and that's why common sense is back. That's why conservatism is back, and that's why I'm going to win the 5th.
Common sense is back, and I'm your commander of common sense. Let's get to the caravan. The president, with my lead-in today, saying he's going to deploy 1,000 troops. He's going to do a series of executive orders that would stop the caravan from coming into the United States. The problem is, as soon as they step foot and say the word asylum, we can't do anything. Our polls in them, Denver, are written in such a way that all they have to do is get a toe in, get their hand grabbed, and say asylum, and then we can't do anything. They cannot go back. What you've seen the president's proposed action here. If you were in Congress now, what would Denver Riggleman be proposing on this caravan?
Well, we're a rule of law, and we're a nation of laws, and we believe in the rule of law. And the way the law is written right now, you're exactly right, John. I don't know, how we don't honor that based on what we believe as conservatives and people who follow the rule of law. However, I think Congress needs to start fixing these immigration laws as soon as possible. And I also believe once that happens, our vetting process for any of these people that are coming through has to be extreme vetting. We do have some of the technology in place now, but we don't put time limits on this. If there's that many people that are headed towards the border. We don't know what's embedded in those. And, John, my biggest fear, it's easy, it's like a Trojan horse, right? Listen, 95%, 99% of those people could actually be seeking asylum, those that, our hearts sort of go out to and with compassion. However, if you have people inside there that are bad actors and they're able to hide, within this caravan, we have to ferret them out. And my guess is this: we're going to be sending some pretty healthy intelligence assets downrange. I think we're going to be monitoring. And my guess is, and I can only speculate right now, my guess is we'll have joint operations with Mexico on monitoring this caravan and seeing any type of emissions that are coming out of there, talk about radio emissions or any kind of intel that we can glean. This is not a good situation. This is not good. And at some point, I think we have to fix our immigration laws in a way that, again, are much more common sense than the sort of ridiculousness we have now going on the border.
I think the concern that everyone has, Denver, is that, okay, there's 12 or 13 or 14,000 people. We have to deal with it. And everybody wants to be concerned. Everybody's concerned about the humanitarian aspect. But a lot of my callers, here's what they're concerned with, okay? If they get in, if this 15,000 gets in, the next one is going to be 150,000, and you're not going to be able to stop that either because we'll never get a wall up in time. And even if you have a wall, you got 150,000 people. I mean, it's just a lot of people. So are you in favor of the president's action now to stop these mob caravan from bum rushing the border and coming in? Are you in favor of stopping them from coming in now?
Yes. I mean, this is a matter of national security. It is a matter of precedent. And again, this comes back to, listen, a normal American will say, hey, we understand people want to come to the United States, but there's a legal process, and we're going to have to follow that legal process. And we think it needs to be applied to all immigrants, and you're exactly right, John. This would set a precedent that could really be damaging to United States security, to our policies, and to our rule of law. You're right. If we just allow everybody in, we're actually sort of acknowledging that open borders is what we want. If we don't follow the rule of law and we don't stop these migrants, sadly, we have to stop them now from coming in and set a precedent.
Denver, in about 5 or 10 minutes, the U.S. government is going to release the new economic numbers. GDP expected to grow again this quarter at over 4%, could be 4.1, 4.2, 4.3. Obama's economy was chugging along at about a 0.5% growth. I mean, there's growth unprecedented. What do you look for in that report? What conclusions do you think you might draw out of it on the economy, Denver Riggleman?
Well, the thing first I'm going to look for, and it's just because I geek out on this stuff, is I'm going to look at the specific, whatever report that I have, I want to look at the number of jobs that are open right now, and I'll look at Virginia, but I'll also see where we're going as far as unemployment. But GDP growth, I'm going to look at manufacturing, and I'm going to look at agriculture. I love looking into the numbers to see where that growth is. And if we're continuing on this line, John, if we're continuing with the lowest unemployment claims in 49 years, with lowest minority unemployment, if we're continuing with GDP growth 4% above every quarter, which is amazing. If the new normal was 2, I mean, this is pretty incredible. If you're looking at all these numbers, I think right now what you're seeing is that the tax cuts work, the Jobs Reform Act works, opportunity zones can be leveraged here in the Commonwealth, an opportunity zone investment, all the things that we look at to encourage entrepreneurship, to encourage people keeping their own money is working. And that's what I'm going to look at this report is this just a continuation of this amazing surge, or are we seeing an even more positive future for the people in the 5th District, but also in the United States and in the Commonwealth of Virginia? I think we are. I think you're just seeing the beginning of this economic boom, and I'm really excited to see what those numbers say based on where job growth and what sectors are growing right now.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see. These are coming out momentarily. We expect that we're going to get over 4% growth, and it's really, really tough for a Democrat right now to talk about economics, the economy, or any of the issues that pertain to jobs and prosperity in America. So they'd rather talk about something else. That's why your opponent, Leslie Colburn, is talking about your Halloween costumes because she doesn't want to talk about the economy. She doesn't want to talk about jobs. She doesn't want to talk about growth. She doesn't want to talk about kids moving out of the basement. She doesn't want to talk about the boom in small businesses. She doesn't want to talk about the deregulation. She doesn't want to talk about the number of investments that are going on because of the tax cut, especially as it relates to 100% deduction of capital investment. She probably doesn't even understand it. And so she doesn't want to talk about any of that. She'd rather talk about your Halloween costume in 2005.
Yeah, and I mean, which I will not take down off the net, by the way. So here's what she would rather talk about. She'd rather talk about $40 trillion in spending, not only for Medicare for all, but also for forgiving student debt, right, which is $1.48 trillion right now, free community college for all or free college for all. Everything she said, and even in debate, she's like, I want to give away this. She doesn't understand that taxpayer money is what you're using. And I get so livid based on what I've fought for, you know, in government overreach. She says she loves government. I fear government. I think government should be limited. I think government should be efficient. She's also said that taxpayer money for the middle class is nothing more than confetti. She's compared ICE to the Nazis. I mean, I find it stunning, John, that anybody would vote for Leslie. Her views are great for San Francisco and maybe a 3 square mile area there or somewhere up in Georgetown, right, in D.C. But for the 5th District, it's absolutely appalling that she thinks these values are actually applicable to the people of the 5th who go out every day and work for a living and don't give a rat's what the chattering class is saying on CNN or MSNBC or any of these other far left, and they are now. They're just propaganda machines. And I think at some point that's going to break through, that you have this coalition of common sense against progressive panderism, and I think that's what's happening in the 5th District. And we're going to win this, John, because I represent American values. I represent conservative values, but I represent what the 5th wants to do right now, and that's why we're going to win this.
Denver Riggleman, I want to thank you for being with us. What's your website?
It's denverforcongress.com, and Twitter is Denver #4VA. So I do appreciate you, John, and thanks for having me on this morning. And, hey, it's here now. I mean, we're a week and a half away, so let's see what happens.
11 days away, denverforcongress.com, denverforcongress.com. Denver Riggleman, thanks for having me. No fake news here, no fake polls. Just got a text here. Somebody says, you go, Denver.